The sound of distant voices echoed through the halls of the Altran embassy, where the delicate balance of two worlds was on display. It was a day like no other, and yet, everything felt as it always had. The warmth of the sun on the glass windows and the hum of life around them gave the world an air of calm. Talia stood before her mother's vast holographic map, her hands clasped behind her back. Despite the tranquility outside, inside, she felt nothing but turmoil. It wasn't that she disliked the idea of marriage, it was just the idea of marrying a human, an earthling, a creature so vastly different from her people. Their skin, their eyes, their emotions, their instinctive need to conquer. Why had it come to this? Why had she, a daughter of Celia, been chosen to marry one of them? And more importantly, why was she being forced to comply with this arrangement? Talia? Her mother's voice called from the doorway. You are not in the council meeting. The young Altran woman turned sharply, her multiple eyes focusing on her mother with growing frustration. The tall figure in the doorway was a perfect representation of everything Talia had been taught to admire and respect. The elegance, the calmness, the peace of being from Celia. Her mother was a prominent figure in Altran politics, a brilliant strategist, revered for her intellect and grace. And yet, when it came to this particular decision, Talia felt she was nothing but a pawn. You know why I am not there, Talia said, her voice tight, barely above a whisper. This union with a human. Why must it happen? Her mother sighed, stepping into the room and closing the door behind her. The expression on her face was soft but firm. It is for the greater good, Talia. You know that. This union will strengthen the ties between our species. It will be a symbol of peace, of cooperation. But why me? Why not someone else? Talia's voice grew louder, the emotion spilling out of her. Why must I be the one to marry a human? I was meant for something greater than this, something meaningful. I was meant to represent Celia's ideals and culture, not this. She motioned to the holographic screen, where an image of Kieran, her intended, flashed. His earthling face was warm, friendly, and she knew that his heart was kind. But that didn't change the fact that he was human. Her mother's expression softened. You will come to understand, my daughter. This is more than just a marriage. It is the beginning of a new chapter. Not just for us, but for both worlds. Celia has long stood alone. It is time we connect with others. Talia shook her head, a mixture of disbelief and anger rising in her. We are not like them. I am not like him. The humans, they are impulsive, reckless, driven by their emotions. How can they possibly understand our ways? Their technology, their customs, none of it aligns with ours. Her mother stepped closer, placing a hand gently on Talia's shoulder. That is why you must be the bridge. You, Talia, have the heart of both worlds. You've always known that. You've spent years among the humans. You understand them better than anyone else. This union isn't just about peace between nations. It is about peace between people. The words were heavy, laden with a truth that Talia wasn't ready to face. It wasn't just a union of two people, but of entire species. She wasn't just being married to Kieran. She was becoming the symbol of their shared future. I'm not ready, Talia whispered, her eyes downcast. You don't need to be ready, her mother replied. You never are, but you will adapt. We all do. Talia turned back to the window, staring out at the city. The skyline shimmered, a testament to the advances of Celia's culture, a culture that had endured thousands of years. And yet, here she was being asked to marry a human. A part of her resented the idea. How could her mother ask her to betray the very foundation of who she was? But the weight of her words, the weight of history, was too strong to ignore. His name is Kieran, her mother continued. He is a representative of Earth's council. He has been working with us for years. He's kind-hearted, and his intentions are sincere. I know you have met him before. Talia's jaw clenched. She had met him. Once, twice perhaps. But those brief encounters had been nothing more than formalities. Nothing more than fleeting moments. How could she possibly marry him? How could anyone? A soft beep broke through her thoughts, and the hollow screen flashed with an incoming message. She glanced at it, hesitating, before her mother waved it through. "Hello, Talia," came Kieran's voice through the screen. His image appeared, a tall, brown-haired man with clear blue eyes, his face soft yet serious. There was a kind of sincerity in his expression, but it did nothing to ease the growing knot in Talia's stomach. "Hello, Kieran," she said, her voice cold, controlled. His smile faltered slightly. "I know this is difficult," he began, his tone gentle, "and I understand why you might feel uncertain about all of this. But please, know that I am not your enemy. I want to understand you, Talia. I want to learn your ways, your culture, your beliefs. I'm not asking for your heart today, just for your trust." Talia's heart raced. His words, though kind, didn't soothe the storm inside her. How could he ask for her trust when he couldn't possibly understand the complexity of her people's history, their pride, their culture? How could he know what it meant to be from Celia? She took a deep breath, calming herself. "Trust is earned, Kieran. It is not given freely. Not by humans, not by anyone." Kieran nodded, his expression understanding but firm. "I know, and I am willing to earn it. I won't rush you, Talia. I know this isn't something you can simply accept, but I will prove myself to you in time." Her mother looked at her, a quiet hope in her eyes. "This is our future, Talia. Both of our futures. You must see that." Talia turned her gaze back to the screen, meeting Kieran's eyes. Despite the uncertainty in her chest, despite the churning feelings that had no name, there was something there. Something she couldn't deny. It wasn't love. Not yet. But perhaps there could be respect. A kind of understanding. Could it grow between them? For a moment, she allowed herself to entertain the possibility. But only for a moment. "I will think about it," she said, her voice softening. "But I cannot promise anything." The screen flickered off, and the room fell into a heavy silence. Her mother's gaze lingered on her. "You are stronger than you realize, Talia, and you are not alone in this. We will walk this path together. As a family." Talia nodded. The storm inside her had quieted slightly, but it was far from gone. There was still much to consider. And yet, somewhere deep inside, she knew the choice was already being made. The future was coming for her, and whether she was ready or not, she was going to have to face it head-on. Let me know how you'd like to proceed, or if you'd like further edits. The following days passed in a blur of meetings and formalities, all designed to prepare Talia for her impending union with Kieran. She'd known it was coming, but the reality was far different from the abstract discussions she'd been a part of back in Celia. The world around her seemed to move forward, even as her heart resisted, unwilling to accept the future that was being carved for her. The Altern Council had already approved the arrangement, with their support echoed by Earth's representatives. The paperwork had been signed, the logistics outlined. Soon, Talia would be leaving Celia's home orbit to join Kieran on Earth, in a joint effort to bridge the two worlds. A marriage that would represent more than two individuals. It would symbolize the melding of two distinct civilizations. She spent her days training in Earth's customs, learning about their history, culture, food, and even their languages. It felt like a whirlwind of information, overwhelming, confusing, and somehow impossibly distant. Her Salian identity, one she had carried so proudly, was being chipped away bit by bit. She wasn't just learning Earth customs. She was being asked to embrace them, as if Celia's rich history was a relic to be cast aside in favor of something new. One night, in the quiet hours after another intense day of study, she stood on the balcony of the Altern Embassy. The night air was cool, and the stars stretched across the sky, more numerous and vivid than anything Earth could offer. It was one of the few things she still found peace in, the stars. They were her home, her guide, the constant reminder of everything she was meant to protect. But tonight, even the stars seemed distant. They didn't feel like home anymore. Instead, they felt like strangers, like an ever-expanding void that she was no longer a part of. Her communicator beeped softly, cutting through her solitude. The message was from Kieran. "Hello, Talia." His warm voice came through the device. "I know we haven't had much time to talk lately, but I wanted to reach out. I've been thinking about you." His words, though simple, held a weight that lingered in the air. Talia felt a tightening in her chest as she read the message. There was something genuine in him, something she couldn't deny. He had been kind, patient, and understanding, but still, she wasn't ready. Could she ever be ready? How could she bond with someone from another world, someone so alien to her, in ways that were fundamental? She tapped the device, her fingers hovering for a moment before she spoke. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can." There was a pause, then Kieran's response came almost too quickly. "You don't have to know how right away. I'm not asking you to change overnight, Talia. I just want to get to know you, whatever that looks like." His sincerity shone through every word. Talia felt her walls falter, just a little. She let the silence linger for a few more moments, the tension between them palpable even across the distance. Finally, she spoke again. "I have been taught that the strength of my people lies in our ability to remain apart. We've always been separate, Kieran. For a reason." "I understand that," Kieran replied, his voice gentle. "But maybe the reason is because you've never had the opportunity to connect with someone outside your world. You've never had the chance to see what you're capable of together." Talia closed her eyes. His words were kind, but there was something that still gnawed at her. Her mother had said she was the bridge, the one who could bring Earth and Celia together. And yet, every time she tried to see this union as a potential source of peace, her thoughts grew more muddled. The truth was, she was terrified. Terrified of losing herself. Terrified of betraying her people's legacy. But even more than that, she feared that, despite all her doubts, she might come to care for Kieran in a way that she couldn't control. The idea of merging with him, of becoming part of something entirely different, was terrifying. She wasn't sure she was ready for that kind of vulnerability. The next day, she met Kieran for the first time since their initial meeting months ago. The location was the Integration Compound, an international project that had brought together Earth's finest minds and the leading figures of Celia. The compound was both awe-inspiring and alien towers that stretched high above, made from materials unknown to both worlds, powered by a fusion of Earth's ingenuity and Celia's advanced technology. When she arrived, she found Kieran waiting in the central hall. He was leaning against one of the columns, his posture relaxed but alert, as though he was accustomed to this space. He wore a simple shirt and pants, clothes that were a far cry from the formal robes she was accustomed to wearing. Talia stood there for a moment, studying him from a distance. He didn't seem anything like what she expected. There was no arrogance in his stance, no push for dominance. His eyes, bright and searching, met hers across the room, and for a moment, she could see a flicker of the same uncertainty she felt reflected in his gaze. He straightened when he saw her. "Talia," he said softly, offering a smile that was both warm and slightly nervous. "I'm glad you came." For the first time, she found herself noticing the small details. The way his hands fidgeted with the edge of his sleeve, how he cleared his throat slightly before speaking. These were things that didn't match up with the human she'd built up in her mind. Strong, confident, unshakable. No, Kieran was human, yes, but he was also vulnerable, just like her. And that vulnerability, that openness, made him more real in her eyes. "You seem different," she said before she could stop herself. The words hung awkwardly between them. "I suppose I am," he said, stepping closer. "The longer I've been here, the more I realize how much I have to learn about your people." "About you? And about your people?" she asked, her voice cautious. His smile grew a little, though it was tinged with sadness. "Maybe that's the hardest part. I see what your people have built, how resilient and independent you are. But I also see how alone you are. And I wonder if you've ever had a chance to truly share who you are with someone else." Talia shifted uncomfortably. She wanted to deny it, to argue, but she knew he was right. The Salian people had always kept to themselves, their pride and their history too vast to allow much room for others. It was how they had survived, how they had thrived. But now, faced with Kieran, she couldn't help but wonder. What if there was more to life than this separation? What if this connection wasn't just a political move, but something that could change both their worlds in ways she never imagined? She opened her mouth to speak, but was interrupted by the arrival of the delegation. The moment between them shattered, and Talia felt the weight of their duty return, cold and heavy. Kieran nodded slightly, giving her a final, thoughtful glance before he turned to greet the others. As she watched him walk away, Talia was left alone with her thoughts. There was no easy answer, and no clear path forward. But there was something in Kieran's eyes, a flicker of something deep and enduring. And for the first time in a long while, Talia felt a stir of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, she might come to understand him after all. The days following the meeting at the integration compound felt heavy, as if the weight of an entire future was resting on her shoulders. Talia couldn't stop thinking about Kieran. His words, his vulnerability, the unexpected warmth in his smile. She wasn't used to being this unsure of herself. In Celia, she was confident, certain of her place in the world, in her people's history. But now, she was lost in a sea of emotions, and it was harder than she ever imagined to reconcile the life she thought she knew with the one that was being forced upon her. The quiet moments were the hardest. When the noise of the world around her faded and it was just her own thoughts, she could feel the conflict pulling at her. She could hear her mother's voice urging her to accept the union, to see the potential for peace between their worlds. But in her heart, the fear of losing herself to someone so different, someone so human, still lingered. It wasn't that Kieran was unkind or unworthy. No, that wasn't it. He was everything her mother had said he would be, gentle, patient, earnest in his desire to learn about her and her people. But there was still so much unknown. Could she trust him with her heart, with her soul, knowing that they were from two completely different worlds? Did they even have a chance at making this work? Her mother had always told her that unity was the future, that in coming together, there was strength in diversity, strength in cooperation. Yet, Talia had spent her entire life thinking that separation was the key to survival. Her people had thrived for thousands of years by staying isolated, by being different. What would it mean for her to change everything now? On the morning of the next meeting with Kieran, Talia stood in front of the mirror, carefully adjusting the folds of her ceremonial cloak. Her reflection stared back at her, but the face looking at her seemed like a stranger. Conflicted, unsure, vulnerable. She had always been proud of the way she carried herself, of the strength that came from her culture, her people. And yet now, she felt as if she was being torn in two, with a future she couldn't control being thrust upon her. The meeting place was the same as before, the integration compound. This time, though, the purpose was different. Today was about establishing deeper communication between their cultures, the first step toward mutual understanding. The human representatives were already there, preparing for a joint research presentation. But before anything else could happen, Talia knew she had to speak with Kieran, to clear the air, to make some sense of the overwhelming emotions swirling inside her. When she entered the compound's main hall, she saw Kieran standing by one of the display panels. His back was to her, but he turned at the sound of her footsteps, his face breaking into a warm smile. For a moment, she felt a strange calm settle over her, as though his presence alone could soothe the turbulence within her. But the moment was fleeting, replaced once again by the growing tension in her chest. "Talia," Kieran greeted her softly, his eyes searching hers. "I'm glad you could make it today." She nodded, though her heart wasn't in it. "I almost didn't come." The words were out before she could stop them, but they felt like a truth she couldn't hide. She hadn't wanted to come today, hadn't wanted to face him. But something inside her told her that this was the moment to confront everything she had been avoiding. If there was any hope of understanding, of moving forward, she needed to be honest. Kieran's expression softened, and he stepped closer. "You don't have to do this, you know. We don't have to move forward if you're not ready." Her eyes flickered to the ground for a moment, then back up to meet his. "But I don't know if I'll ever be ready." I don't know how to be what you need me to be, Kieran. His gaze never wavered. I'm not asking you to change, Talia. I don't need you to be anyone but yourself. But I do want to understand you. I want to give you the space to figure this out, to move at your own pace. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. It was enough to make Talia's heart race, to make the walls around her begin to crack. She had been so focused on her fear of change, on the fear of being lost to a foreign world, that she had forgotten what it was to be seen, truly seen by someone else. Kieran wasn't asking for her to erase who she was. He wasn't asking her to leave her people behind. He just wanted her to be with him, to discover a new way of being together. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared of what this means. What we mean. I know you are, Kieran said gently. I'm scared too. I'm scared of the unknown, of the differences that feel too vast to overcome. But I believe that we can try, and trying is the only way we'll ever know. She looked up at him then, and in his eyes, she saw something that made her heart ache with longing. An understanding, a shared vulnerability. He didn't expect her to have all the answers. He wasn't trying to force her into a mold she didn't fit. He was offering her a hand, a chance to step into the unknown together. I can't promise you anything, Talia said slowly, but I'm willing to try too, to see where this goes, to see if we can find a way to make this work. Kieran's face softened with relief, and he reached out, his hand hovering near hers before he gently took it. That's all I'm asking for, a chance. In that moment, Talia realized something profound. She wasn't just afraid of losing herself in this union. She was afraid of what might happen if she allowed herself to open up, to let someone else in. But the possibility of connection, of growth, of understanding, was something she couldn't ignore. The day continued with presentations, lectures, and discussions about their shared future. But for Talia, the world had shifted. She had opened a door that she hadn't been willing to before, and the path ahead was still unclear, but it no longer felt impossible. She didn't know what the future would bring, whether she and Kieran would truly be able to bridge the divide between their worlds, whether their love would bloom or fade. But for the first time, she felt the possibility of something beautiful, something worth exploring. And that was enough for now. The weeks after their conversation felt like a slow unraveling of the walls Talia had built around her heart. Each day, she spent more time with Kieran, working together on the shared project that had brought them both to Earth. The more she learned about him, the more her doubts seemed to dissipate, replaced with a growing understanding. Kieran wasn't perfect. No one was. But he was real, genuine, and willing to meet her halfway. Something she'd never expected from a human. They spent hours together, discussing their respective cultures, their hopes for the future, and the challenges they both faced. It was strange, but there was something comforting about talking with him. He wasn't asking her to change for him. Instead, he was asking her to let him in, to share her world with him in whatever way she could. One evening, after another long day of meetings and discussions, they found themselves walking together through the embassy grounds. The sky was painted in hues of purple and pink as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a soft, ethereal glow. It felt like a peaceful moment, one that had become more frequent between them. Kieran spoke first, his voice soft and thoughtful. I've been thinking a lot about everything lately, about us, about how this will change both our worlds. And I want you to know, I'm here for the long haul, Talia. I want to give this a real chance. Her heart skipped a beat, and she turned to look at him, her gaze searching his. There was a sincerity in his eyes that took her breath away. It was something she hadn't expected. And yet, here he was, offering her more than she had ever imagined. I don't know if I can promise you forever, she replied, her voice quiet. But I can promise that I will try. I will try to understand, to find a way to make this work, even if it scares me. Kieran stopped walking, turning to face her completely. He took her hands in his, the warmth of his touch grounding her. That's all I'm asking for, Talia. Just try. We don't have to know everything right now, but we can figure it out together. There was a moment of silence as they stood there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the embassy and the distant sounds of the city. In that silence, Talia felt a shift within her. It wasn't a sudden, overwhelming revelation, but a subtle understanding that maybe, just maybe, she could give herself to this. To him. To them. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel the crushing weight of expectations pressing down on her. She wasn't Celia's representative anymore, or the woman who had been destined to bring two worlds together by duty alone. She was just Talia, and in this moment, she could choose to be something more, to open her heart, to explore what it might mean to love a human. They continued walking, hand in hand, through the embassy grounds, the light from the setting sun casting long shadows across the path. As they walked, their conversation deepened. They talked about everything, what they loved, what they feared, the dreams they held for the future. Talia found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't with anyone before, sharing thoughts and memories she had never spoken aloud. She told him about her childhood on Celia, about the strong bond she shared with her family, and the way her people had always valued isolation for the sake of survival. Kieran listened intently, never interrupting, just absorbing her words and responding with genuine curiosity. "I can't imagine what that must have been like," Kieran said softly. "Being raised with such a deep sense of duty to your people, and knowing that you might never be able to step outside of that world." Talia looked at him, surprised by his insight. "It was everything I knew, and now it feels like it's all changing so fast. The future seems uncertain, and I don't know how to navigate it. I thought I understood who I was, what my role was supposed to be. But now, I'm not so sure." He stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression soft but serious. "I understand that. Change is never easy, especially when it feels like it's being forced upon you. But you don't have to go through this alone, Talia. You have me. We have each other." The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell. It wasn't a grand promise of eternal love or a fairy tale ending. It was simpler than that, yet more profound. It was a promise to be there, no matter how difficult the journey might be. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Someone who would see me for who I am, not just what I represent. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like maybe we're not so different after all." Kieran smiled, his thumb gently brushing against her hand. "We're not. We're both just trying to figure things out, in our own ways." As the night drew on, they sat together in the garden of the embassy, the stars above them sparkling brightly in the clear sky. The soft sounds of the wind and distant chatter from the embassy filled the air, but for Talia, it felt like they were in their own little world, separated from everything else. In that quiet moment, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just trying anymore. She wasn't just going through the motions of a forced union. She was opening herself up to the possibility of something real, something meaningful. The fear that had once gripped her heart was still there, but it was no longer overwhelming. It was something she could face, something she could work through, and in that she found strength. "I think I'm ready," she said finally, looking at him with a newfound resolve. "I'm ready to see where this can go. Ready to give us a chance, to give me a chance to experience something I've never allowed myself to before." Kieran's smile was soft and full of relief. He leaned in, pressing his forehead gently to hers. "I promise, I won't rush you. We'll take it one step at a time. Together." For the first time in a long while, Talia felt at peace. She didn't know what the future held, or if their worlds would ever fully understand each other. But she knew this. Love, understanding, and the willingness to try were powerful forces. And with Kieran by her side, she wasn't afraid to face them. The stars above them twinkled as though to remind her of the endless possibilities. And in that moment, she finally believed that, no matter how different their worlds were, they could find a way to make this work. One step at a time.